when do you meet my dad?
I knew him from just racing when I started racing.
What was the opinion? Now, no straight up, you can tell me the truth. What was the general opinion of him when he was carrying his short track car around right before he got up into the Cup deal?
I mean, he was the one you didn't want your back bumper on the last lap. He was not content to run second or third. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was going to win the race if he could win the race. And he didn't race, I don't think, for money. He raced because he liked to race.
Hey everybody, it's Dale Jr. here for the Dale Jr. Download. Welcome to the Arby studio. Arby's a new partner here at Dirty Mo Media. Arby's has got a new meat and 3 box. Get more meal for your money at Arby's. We have the meats, and we have a new show today. We got a great guest coming in today that I'm really excited about. Maybe some of you heard this name, but maybe some of you haven't. Jay Hedgecock is going to be the guest. Jay Hedgecock is a chassis builder, builds a lot of cars in the short track community, builds chassis. We've bought chassis from him for quite a while now with our late model stock stuff. Josh Berry drove his cars, and he has lots of cars in the Cars Tour and across the Southeast, building all sorts of stuff. But his story is pretty cool. Started racing, building his own cars back in the 70s. My dad drove his cars a couple times at the short tracks. We'll talk about that. I've seen the photos, have no idea about the stories. He was a witness to some of Dad's shenanigans on the short track courses around the Southeast here when Dad was trying to cut his teeth and get his break in NASCAR. Jay built Cup cars for Dad, Richard Petty, all sorts of people. So it's going to be a lot of fun learning about his story. This is a guy that loved to work on cars, loved building them, and has made his life doing just that. And I've seen him. So I bought cars. I bought Hedgecock chassis for years. Didn't really know Jay. Couldn't have picked him out of a lineup. Over the last few years that I've got into the Cars Tour ownership and been going to the track and competing and racing, I've started to meet Jay and see him at the track. And I've wanted to know about this connection with Dad, and obviously his story as someone in the industry. So I'm excited about this. This is my personal choice to bring him in. And hopefully you'll enjoy the conversation. Let's bring him in the room. Jay Hedgecock. Jay Hedgecock on the Dale Jr. Download, man. I'm excited about this. I have gotten to – I don't know you well as I'd like, but I know who you are, and I know your name, and I've known your name for a long time because you built some really great race cars for my race team at Junior Motorsports. And I recognized your name from some connections to my dad back in the day. Made me want to learn more about you. So thanks for coming out today.
Well, good. I'm glad to be here.
So Jay Hedgecock has been a chassis builder for how many years now?
I built my first race car 55 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was 15 years old.
Yeah. Your dad raced or was involved in racing and drove, I guess, the winning car, one of the winning cars in a feature to the Daytona Beach course, and then drove it back home. Tell me that story.
Yeah. My dad used to hang around with Bill Blair.
Yes.
Bill Blair Sr. Yeah. And this was before he got married and had children and stuff. But the year that he won the Daytona 500 is in 1953, and my father drove the Oldsmobile from High Point to Daytona, and then they got it prepped for the race. They changed it, took the headlights out of it, and took the exhaust off of it, and put different wheels and tires on it. And they won the race, and then they put it all back together and drove it back to High Point.
That's wild.
The next day. I mean,
wow. Things were quite different back then. So your earliest memories, I suppose, of your childhood, your dad was involved in racing back then?
Yeah, he knew a lot of people. There was a lot of modified racing around High Point, Winston-Salem and stuff.
Yep.
And there was some guys over in High Point, Ken Rush, Harold Rush, and Paul Walton, and they had repair shops all within 10 feet of each other in a little parking lot.
Yeah.
And they all had modified cars.
Yep.
And my dad would take me over there, and the one thing I remember when I was a kid we got home one night, and I asked my dad. I said, "What was that in that 55-gallon barrel sitting in the shop? It had them in glass bottles in it, and it turned out it was their beer bottles."
Yeah.
And that was the one thing I remember. They all back then they ran coupes and coaches and fuel injection and stuff, and it was cool. I mean, I remember they used to let me sit in them while Daddy and them piddled.
Yeah. And so you wanted to build your own car, and
I always wanted to build my own cars, and then I started racing midgets when I was 15 years old. Micro midgets.
Yeah. Where at?
There was a place at Union Cross Speedway.
Yeah.
Between Winston and High Point. I raced there, and then I'd race some in Concord.
Yeah. And you built this car yourself in?
The very first one I had, I got it out of my uncle's junkyard. My dad and my uncle built it, and
how'd they build it? What did they find? What do you pull out of the junkyard to build one of them things?
Well, back then it was they hand built it in their shop, but it was all like round tubing and made a sheet metal body, and they raced it around. Different people drove it. Max Barrier that used to race, that recently passed away, he drove it, and Ken Rush drove it, and they quit racing.
They quit racing it and went to the junkyard.
Went to the junkyard, and I found it in the bulldozer junkyard, I call it, and drug it out, and got it ready, and then we raced it, and eventually I built another one a couple of years later that was from the ground up. I built.
Yeah. And so how long did you do that before what was the next step?
Well, I raced those till I was probably from 15 till I was 19. And then when I was...
What kind of racetracks are you competing on?
It was like 10th and 8th of a mile, kind of like Millbridge.
Yeah.
Dirt. There was one in Concord. It was asphalt.
I got you.
We would go there. And
your dad's helping you, taking you?
Yeah, they would go with me.
What were y'all towing?
We didn't tow nothing. We put it in the back of the pickup truck.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
I had a 64 Chevrolet pickup truck my dad bought brand new. I still have it.
Yeah.
And then we would put it in the back of the truck and go to the racetrack and get a couple of people help unload it. And so it was good.
So you get up to around 19. You were going to Davidson College?
Yeah, Davidson County Community College.
Okay.
That was.
You were enrolled in the General Motors Institute?
That's where I was going to transfer to. I was going to take 2 years of college preparatory classes.
What was your ambition? Where, if in that moment, were you thinking about going into automotive service repairs?
No,
what was it?
It was just racing. I thought
you were going to learn all that and then still go race.
Right.
You got a job with Tex Powell.
Right.
Tell me who Tex Powell is.
Tex Powell is one of the smartest people I've ever met. He's responsible for me knowing a lot.
For folks listening, if you're in the industry, you hear Tex Powell's name a lot over the years. So yeah, just try to help us understand the individual he was.
Yeah, he was originally obviously from Texas, and he came up here and he had a shop in Asheboro, and I happened to be down there with a friend picking up some parts one day, and I'd been working after school at a sheet metal shop. I mean, not sheet metal, but a machine shop, and they taught you a lot of stuff about sharpening drill bits and stuff like that. And when I got there, Tex was trying to drill a hole in something. It was making a terrible noise and squealing, and I just told him, I said, I can sharpen that for you if you want me to. And so I sharpened it for him, and then he drilled right through it, and he said, can you sharpen some more before you leave? And so I did. And then he said, what else can you do? I said, well, I can run your lathe and your mill. And he said, well, you want a job? I said, well, I'm in school right now. And so then kind of worked around to where I worked some, and then I just quit school and worked there full time. Mm-hmm. And that's when we was building Benny Parsons cars that LG DeWitt owned.
Really?
Yes.
They were in there?
They were in there. So
what were y'all doing to them?
Well, we put clips on them, whatever they needed, help do
what other business was he doing in that shop?
He was starting the transmission and rear end business.
Yep. That's what
he's famous for.
Famous for, yeah.
Yeah, and he was doing that on in conjunction with building race cars too, repairing race cars and stuff. But the big deal was just looking after LG stuff,
yeah.
And then we did some stuff for some different people. There was a couple people that we took Daytona and stuff that they ran, and so.
Oh, you take care, you build the cars or whatever, and take them to Daytona.
Yeah.
For speed weeks and stuff. Tex Powell would become synonymous with transmissions, rear end gears, and I mean, if you raced Cup in the '80s, you had his rear ends, you had his trans. Everybody
right.
ran his stuff. He was the guy. So you worked there for a while. That must have been quite helpful to be able to be under the tutelage of not only Tex Powell, but all the other individuals. Who else was working there? Any other recognizable names?
Well, Steve Mill worked there.
Oh, yeah.
He left, and I was still there.
Yep.
And he went on, to work at the Petties and Jack Roush and stuff. And but a lot of the guys that worked down there wasn't a lot of us that worked there. There was only 2 or 3 at a time. And there was one guy, we called him Zoomer, and he worked in this racing since he left Tex, and Tex closed down. But he's recently passed away. But there was just there's a lot of people would come in and out. You would meet and stuff.
Yeah.
Waddell Wilson used to come up there because he built the motors for LG back then.
Yeah.
So
see him quite a bit. You got hired to drive for Cliff Stewart.
Right.
Cliff owned a late model Sportsman car.
He owned late model Sportsman and Cup cars,
right?
Grand National cars.
So
Sportsman.
I guess this is you were 18?
Well, I was like 20 years old.
Okay. And this would have been right around 70...
77.
77.
Yeah.
So who drove his Cup car back then? I know eventually he'd get the Gatorade deal in 80 or something, 81 or something, but he had Ricky Rudd. I think Rusty Wallace drove his car for a year or so with the Algigard sponsorship. But who was driving his Cup cars back then?
At the time, Darrell Bryant was driving them.
I got you.
Darrell Bryant, he drove them. They were the number 50 cars. And they had 3 or 4 Cup cars and 2 or 3 Sportsman cars. And his son was a friend of mine. We were within a couple of years of being the same age and lived in the neighborhood. And
what's his name?
Howard Stewart. He owned Stewart Components, where they make water pumps, fuel pumps, and stuff like that.
The Stewart logo that was on race cars forever.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he come to my shop one night, and I was building a modified car. I wanted to race a modified. And Waddell sold me a 427 that they run the big blocks back then. And I was building a modified car, and Howard showed up one night, and he said, Daddy's got them race cars? And I said, yeah. He said, you want to drive them? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll drive them. He said, I'm serious. He said, I'm going to bring one over tomorrow then if you want to race. I said, we're going to race. He said, we'll go to Caraway. I said, when? He said, this weekend.
Holy crap.
Like, oh, God, so he showed up with a 69 Chevelle, and we messed with it and I got where I get the seat in there, fitted and all. And back then it was kind of like when your dad first started, he had a Mustang seat, put sides on it, and that's what was in the car at the time. And so we raced that car the rest of the year. In the very last race we run the thing, it got total loss at Franklin County. And so then we started building.
What happened?
It was a late afternoon race, and it was sun going down, and we were running, and nobody could see good enough to see that the car spun in the corner. And I went flying in the corner, and I locked the brakes up and slid, and I just slid up against him, and I was getting ready to put it in reverse. And about that time, Tommy Houston, he didn't see he couldn't see for the sun, and he hit me wide open in the back.
Man.
And so that little fella.
What was the racing? What was the racing at the local tracks like Caraway and so forth like comparable to today?
It was a lot. There was a lot. There's so much people are able to watch TV that it's harder to get full crowds like you did back then.
Yeah.
Back then we would have 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people a night, Caraway and places, and but it was the racing was kind of a bit different back then. That it was more, I call it gentleman-like. There wasn't a lot of bump and runs. If it was a bump and run, it usually got taken care of the next corner.
Yes.
I mean, that's what your dad was involved in one of them in one of my cars one night. But it was just a lot different. Nobody was really making a living. I made a living doing it. I was fortunate enough I got paid a salary and a percentage when I was 21 years old.
What was it? Do you remember?
They give me $500 a week to work on them, and then I got 40%
of what you won.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, when you're
$500 a week back then, incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
what did you do? Like, what would you attribute in your life or career that got you that opportunity?
Just Howard and them, Tex taught me so much that I knew what I was doing working on race cars at a young age.
Yeah.
And it would.
Were you working on their cup cars as well, prepping all that stuff and helping them with everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
At Tex's place.
Yeah.
And then
Well, when you went to Stewart's, Cliff's, when you went over there to drive for him, were you helping him? Were you driving for him? Were you working there? Were you?
They brought everything to my shop.
Everything.
Well, we just took the sportsman cars. We didn't bring the cup cars.
Yeah.
We just brought sportsman cars, and then we worked on my shop.
Did you have? Was it just you driving his cars, or was there some other dudes driving?
The only guy that drove it besides me when I was there with now I drove them all there, and then Morgan Shepherd took over, and then the next car that I drove for a guy out of Lexington, I built 2 cars, and your dad drove one.
Yes.
And then David Pearson drove the other ones. Some.
Yeah.
They do special events.
How come I guess what happened with Cliff where Morgan come along?
You just want him changing of the guards, I guess you'd say. The problem we had was that my cars were way better than my driving was at the time. I was, a year into driving a stock car, and all I knew was you got to run as fast as you can every lap. And that it worked out. It looked good for 3/4 of the race. And then, unless you could get tires, back then we could change tires whenever you wanted to.
I know, it's crazy. Care.
And then unless you had a good caution flag.
How come guys, so today we run, the Cars Tour and late model stocks, and you build a lot of chassis that compete in our series. We run a 4-tire race. You start the race, you run 125 laps on the same set. Back in the 70s, and when Sam Ard and Butch Lindley and those guys were racing every single week up and down, the East Coast, you changed tires anytime you wanted. How were they able to afford doing that?
Well, back then the tires were $300 a set.
Yeah, but it was still expensive for that time frame.
Still expensive, but and
there were some guys had tire deals.
Yeah, we had a partial tire deal, I call it. We would, I don't know the whole extent to it, but. And
then there were multiple different manufacturers, and Firestone was really good for a while. If you didn't have Firestones, you weren't going to be able to win.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Firestones were the tire to run at Fayetteville.
Oh.
Fayetteville was hard on tires, and that was, when you went to Fayetteville, you had to have Firestone.
Yeah.
Went to Goodyear's, when you Caraway, Hickory, places like that, you was on the Goodyear. But I was friends with Tom Parnell, who was a Goodyear dealer.
Yeah.
And so I pretty much stuck to the Goodyears.
Yeah.
I just couldn't, I couldn't he was too nice to us.
Yeah.
If they got a new tire out, they wanted somebody to try it, because they didn't present nothing to no officials. They just said, hey,
here's a tire.
Here's tires.
Go run it.
Yeah. And sometimes they say, don't stack them all 4 high.
Why?
Because they might be 2 inches higher than their normal set.
That they're wider. That's hilarious. So, you ran with Stewart from 77 through 81. You had a 7th at the Cardinal 500 Martinsville in 77. You had strong finishes of 4th at the 500, the Cardinal 500 in 79, and the Dogwood 500 in 81. Track championships at Caraway in 79 and 80. You ran a Grand American race at Charlotte in 79. When do you meet my dad?
I knew him from just racing when I started racing.
Yep. He'd bring his car around.
Gary Hargett's car.
That's right.
He drove that around, and I would see him then and talk to him some, and
what was the opinion? Now, no bullshit. Straight up, you can tell me the truth. What was the general opinion of him? In 77, 78, when he was carrying his short track car around right before he got up into the Cup deal.
He was the one you didn't want on your back bumper on the last lap, because he was going to do whatever. And because he was, what I told somebody about your dad one time was, when he drove my car, and I know he was getting $5,000-$10,000 to come race it, and he didn't have to take a chance, but he was not content to run second or third.
Mm-hmm.
He was going to win the race if he could win the race. And he didn't race, I don't think, for money. He raced because he liked to race.
Yeah.
And that's the way. I mean, he did whatever he had to do to get to the front. You know, I mean, he was driving my car at Martinsville one time, and I was running, and I had qualified in front of him. Well, he was, back then they had restart. When you went into turn 3, it was every man for himself. Leader could go. Well, you single file, so you would jump to the outside, whatever you wanted to do. And that one time, I don't know if you know Ronnie Revis, who was B&R Engines.
Nope.
Well, anyway, he was my spotter, and caution come out, and he said Dale's making about 5 spots per restart on the outside before they come off of turn 4. And he said, so just watch. He's about 6 cars back. He said, won't you jump beside this guy in front of you and see if you can pick up some spots. So I did it when they started in 3. I jumped outside, and about time we started off the corner, Ronnie said, outside, 3 wide. The guy was in my door pushing me, and then your dad winds up hitting the wall, comes off the wall, messes up a rim, had to make a pit stop, and come up. At the race, so we come over, and he said, I tried. I said, I didn't think you was going to get that far up in that shorter period of time. And I didn't mean to get you in the wall. And he said, hey, I'd have moved you in the wall too if you'd have been in the middle. So.
Yeah. So he ends up driving your car. I know I've seen pictures of this, your car at Martinsville with Dad's name on it. And then there's a picture of him at Caraway. Is that the only 2 times that he drove your car?
That's the only 2 times he drove it.
And so when he would, that was 81?
No, that was 1979 when he took over Osterland.
Really? 79 he did that.
Had a yellow helmet.
Yep. So he's got quite the reputation, having raced through 70s, I guess, 76, 77, 78, running all the short track races. I got so many pictures of him running his Nova all around, chasing y'all. And how does the conversation start for him to come drive your car? Or did you call him? Did he call you?
No, actually the track promoter, Russell Hackett, he called us and said, hey, he said, I'd like to bring Dale down here and let him drive your car, your second car, if y'all are fine with it. Well, I didn't own them. I just built them, got paid. And so they called the owner, Bob Sweat, and said, hey, work out a deal, and I'm sure, $5,000, $10,000, drive it. And, the night he drove it at Caraway, I mean, it was a big race, 200 laps, and that night there, I had to race 1. I was about a half a straightaway ahead, and him and Sam were going at it like tooth and nail. People they weren't watching nothing but them two. And so it would come down about 5 or 6 laps to go. And spotter says, you got about a half a straightaway, just be careful. And so I run another lap, I come around, I get the back straightaway gate, and I look up to see where they're at. And when I look back down, all I see is 3-foot wide strip of oil and water. A guy had blew a motor going into 3. No caution lights, no nothing. Well, I let go of the gas, thinking, please just let me do it. Well, it's like it sucked into the line of the oil, and I hit him head on. Then the caution comes out, and so they have a restart with 4 to go. And him and Sam are going at it. I just watched a minute of it, and I was like, this is not going to end well. Because one of them moved one end, and the next one in the other one next to him. So comes down the white flag, and your dad's leading, goes into one. Sam moves him up the hill. They go down the back straightaway, and your dad makes a bonsai move to move him. They both kind of spin, and then your dad tries to go to the outside, and Sam knocks it out of gear or clutches it and comes back up and lips him.
Yeah.
The guy running 10th wins the race.
Oh, crap.
And so when the race is over with, I mean, there was probably 5, 6, 7,000 people there.
Yeah.
And there's pictures of people standing up, and I was talking to some of them. They said, the flagman come down there about that time, and I was talking to him, and he said, I'm sorry about the no caution, but he said, I watched them. I didn't watch you. He said it was, we knew it was going to be any moment they were going to be into it, and we was watching you and never saw Hensley blow a motor.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I understand. And there's a picture of my shop. Your dad's sitting on the back of the trailer with me, and he's got him a solo cup, and he's like, and he's telling me, he said, hey, I'm sorry I tore your race car, but he started it. He said if I couldn't win, he wasn't gonna win.
Yeah.
And I was like,
was Sam the kind of guy to get upset?
No, I mean, he was in the car. He was, mad, I'm sure. But that was it.
There wasn't no conversation?
Oh,
or...
no.
No. You'd think, hearing stories about that and the way people act today, anytime anybody has a confrontation on the racetrack, you'd think that, in my mind, when I hear this story, right, of Dad and Sam going at it tooth and nail, and then eventually Dad ends up spinning them both out, you'd think there would have been a crowd in the infield and a lot of insults and angry.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, the fans were more upset.
Well, I'm sure, yeah. But
because there was more Dale Earnhardt fans there than there were Sam Hart fans.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And it was so, you listen to them. But I mean, as far as the drivers go, it wasn't like people were swinging and stuff. It was just.
What kind of damage was done to the car? Was it all body damage?
His car was all, cosmetic, lower stuff. My car had
worse.
That front clip.
Yeah. You mentioned being there at Caraway during another race where Dad and Butch Lindley got into it. Marty works here as crew chief on one of the cars, and we talk about our dads all the time. Butch Lindley was considered, and still considered today, as one of the greatest short track racers in NASCAR history. There's a big push for Butch to try to get himself into the Hall of Fame. He's won over 500 races. The majority of those were NASCAR sanctioned events on the short tracks and tons of track championships. You're a witness to his career.
Right.
You'd agree with how amazing Butch Lindley was. Him and Dad apparently had a hell of a battle. I've heard little brief comments about this, but not from anyone who was there.
Yeah, I wasn't racing then. I was probably 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
And so it come down as another deal. It was a big race, I think it's a 200 lapper, and everybody been putting on tires, and it come down to them two. And I mean, Butch was leading, and your dad got underneath him right there at the end of the race, and they run side by side. Well, they come off forward to get the checkered flag, and your dad was trying to get him to lift, and squeezed him, and Butch didn't lift, and so he hit the wall, climbed the wall, and when he comes down, he's on top of your dad's car, on the roof.
Damn.
And when they come out of start finish line, sparks are flying. And there's people. I have pictures of it somewhere. I've tried to find them, but a lot of times people borrow pictures. But when they crossed the line, your dad's hood was about 6 inches in front of Butch's hood, and when they stopped, they're still hooked together.
Yeah.
It took them, 2 wreckers and 30 minutes to get them untangled, and they get out, and they're okay.
Yeah.
No big deal.
No big deal.
We raced, and you won.
Yeah. Dirty Mo Media, Junior Motorsports, and I have a new partner this year, and we couldn't be more excited about this. A lot of y'all may have heard Arby's has come on board, and we're loving every second of it. We recently went to their store, a local store here in Cornelius, North Carolina, for a commercial shoot. We had a great time. I think we shot a great commercial. You'll be able to see the new commercial on TV during the Daytona 500 weekend. And Arby's has entered the chat with a meal deal that raises the bar for value. Introducing the new meat and 3 box for $7.99 that's filled with Arby's quality favorites. Each meat and 3 box includes your choice of one sandwich: the classic roast beef that is hand sliced and slow roasted, or the crispy chicken sandwich, or you can go with the crispy fish sandwich. All this comes with the melty mozzarella sticks, some crispy curly fries, everybody loves those, and a peach cobbler roll for dessert, guys. You got to try that dessert. It's really good. And you get a small drink. It's called Meat and 3, but you're actually getting 5 items, all for only $7.99. Nobody out there is giving you this much value for your money. This is a value meal that won't leave you hungry. You don't have to settle for less when you get more from Arby's. Available for a limited time at participating locations while supplies last. Prices may vary. Get your Meat and 3 box at an Arby's near you today. After your deal with Cliff Champion, you went and started running more modifieds. Got into modified racing. What was your path?
Well, I drove a few people's sportsman cars, and then they turned into Busch Series cars. And then I was at Orange County for a race one night. There was a NASCAR tour race there, and I wasn't going to drive. I took my helmet and stuff just in case.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a late model race and a bush race there, and I just in case somebody wanted it. Well, nobody said anything on Friday, so we went out partying on Friday night. And Saturday morning, I get there to the racetrack at Orange County, and I feel bad.
Yeah.
Bad. The guy comes to me, he said, "Hey, my driver didn't show up. You want to drive my modified car?" And I said, "I guess. I don't know." And he said, "Come on, get in it." So I went over and went to the bathroom first and made sure I wasn't going to throw up in the car. And so get in the thing and run a few laps. And the guy said, "Well, we're fast." He said, "You want to race it?" I said, "Yeah, I mean, I will." So it was like 40, 50 some cars there. We qualified fourth with the thing, and then got about 5 of us got wrecked on about lap 3.
Yeah.
And he didn't have he had a little fiberglass seat in there that was not made for me. Broke 4 or 5 ribs when it hit. So then I started driving his car some, and then I'll drive other people's cars too. But I always like the modified cars.
What are you doing for a living
now or then?
No, then.
Oh, I was building cars for other people.
Yeah. So you had started building chassis and had gotten into a pattern of being, having regular customers.
Right.
What kind of cars were you building?
Mainly late model sportsman cars.
Yeah.
I built some for Phil Parsons, different people. Just whoever come in there would want one.
What you had a jig and build any car anytime anybody wanted a car, you build one.
Yeah, because I built 2 jigs whenever I was building the Howard Stewart's cars.
Yep.
And then the 8 cars that I drove.
How big was your shop?
At the time, it was just a Quonset hut. It's like 60 foot long by 25 foot wide.
Yeah.
I had my jigs where I could bolt wheels on them and take them outside because I kept 2 cars in there, and I had 2 jigs, and I would take them to work on them, roll them out and stuff. And then I built.
Do you have pictures of all this?
Yeah.
Oh man, I bet it's badass.
And now the funniest thing is back. I know Jerry Kennan.
Yes.
Okay, Jerry worked for me. He crew chiefed me for a while, and we came out with the blue 8 car, and we went to Caraway with the thing, and we broke the track record the first time. So then back then they liked to bet on things, and on my walls of my Quonset hut still there, they took chalk and wrote, everybody put $5 in a pot and bet and see how fast you can run this week.
Yeah.
And I actually broke the track record 3 weeks in a row, and they had put a check mark beside the name who won the money.
Yeah.
And then that was,
That's all still there.
Yeah, still there.
Yeah. What's in that building now?
Just a lot of storage stuff.
Yeah.
Just storage stuff.
Any old parts and pieces and things from the history?
Yeah, I've got a lot of
past?
stuff. I've still got a lot of stuff in
Really?
the other building.
Yeah. Oh man, I bet it's cool to walk through there.
Yeah.
So you're building chassis and just kind of, that's fun that's how you're making a living, is building cars for people. And you're still going to the racetrack and driving. You would end up finishing 3rd at the track championship in '83. You had 10 wins at Orange County Speedway. You ran the World Series of Asphalt at New Smyrna and had a win there as recent as 1990.
Mm-hmm.
You won a 150 lapper in '86 at Wilkesboro, in modified stuff. Then you had a serious crash at IRP in '88. What happened there?
Yeah, we went up there for a NASCAR tour race, and we'd been running there, and you know how it is IRP. You've raced there before. You could stay up top, run momentum deal.
Yep.
And we were coming about halfway through the race, and the guy got into me coming off a 2, and I turned it a little sideways, and when I went to correct it, he hit me again and just turned it right, and I caught the gate.
Yep, right in the middle of the backstretch.
Yeah, and then when it did, it just like shot the car around, and I'm going down the back straightaway backwards, and I can see I'm going to go for the wall. And the last thing I remember was hooking my arm around the seat side rest from my shoulder or my ribs, and you didn't have a left side headrest back then, and I just remember thinking I needed to stop from getting into the wall here on my head, and it hit so hard that it shot the rear end out the right side of the car, and my head went out the window and hit the concrete.
It did.
Yeah. And I was unconscious for, several hours off and on, I never woke up till they got me to the hospital. And then, while while I was there, Kenny Schrader come to see me because he told some of them, he said, I thought he was dead.
Yeah.
He was behind us, and he come to see, make sure I was all right, and they told him he'll be all right. But I got a pretty bad concussion from the recussion of the brain slamming back to the right side of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And when they got ready to leave the next day, I remember that we was sitting there, and my buddies were going to carry me back. They didn't want me flying an airplane with my concussion.
Sure.
And I remember one of them, the doctor said, "Now you can't let him drive." And one of the boys said, "Well, if he could drive, we wouldn't be here." And I was like, so we wound up. The doctor told me, he said, "Look," he said, "you damaged the part of your brain that controls numbers." And he said, "Numbers are going to be a problem, and it may last a week, a day, a month, or a year, and may never come back." And so I didn't.
What do you recall about those type of symptoms?
Like, you had severe headaches, on the right side. Just anytime, if you even tried drinking a mouthful of alcohol, a glass of wine or anything, it hurt so bad you couldn't stand it. And but I remember I got home the next day, the phone bill come in the mail, and I was looking at it, and I was like, I remember paying the bill, but they crossed in the mail, so I needed to subtract the old from the new statement. And I looked at the numbers, and they looked like Chinese. I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah,
and
what you do for a living is
a lot
measurements and numbers.
And it was about 2 weeks later. I went to the restaurant, eat breakfast. I picked up a newspaper, and I was reading it, and it got to some numbers, and I recognized them. And I got the waitress's notepad, and I wrote some numbers down, and I added them up, and I asked the guy beside me, I said, "Is that right?" And he said,
"Holy
yeah, why?"
Yeah.
I said, "I just checking, just make sure." And it just came back
like a light switch.
Yeah,
I've learned the way I kind of feel about things like that in my own experiences is to describe it to somebody. When you have a head injury, it's like clipping some wires or some circuits, and those circuits have to fuse back together. And it is almost, in a lot of cases, like a light switch. Like, you'll have these symptoms, they'll be what they are. They don't ease away. They just are there all the time, and then you wake up one day and it's better.
That's exactly the way this was.
Yeah, and not everybody's experience is like that, but that's one of the ways that can be experienced when you're recovering from head injuries. Was that the only head injury that you remember having from racing? I'm sure you had plenty.
I've had a couple.
Got dinged up,
got knocked out. We crashed at Concord one night. The rack broke, and just coming off corner, turned my head on into the wall.
Damn.
I remember when I come to, couldn't pick my head up, couldn't move my arms, and I could see light and people yelling and running around, and they're looking at me, yelling at me, and I could move my eyes, but nothing else would move. And I thought, I'm paralyzed. And then I remember the roof come off of it, and they're getting a backboard down me, and then all of a sudden you tingling all through your extremities, and then you can start moving your fingers again. It just the shock is what I guess the doctor said.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Damn. You built cars. You built some cars in the Busch series. You started building some Cup chassis. How did that process happen? Late model sportsman car obviously changed over the course of a few years, and how do you get opportunities, I suppose, to start building cars on the Cup level?
People just come to see you. I mean, they know me from racing with me. When the Petties come to see me, they want me to build cars for him, the 88, 89.
Yeah.
And
why did they want to start using your business?
They just wanted something different. And they had Larry Rathgab. I don't know if you know the name Larry Rathgab. He was an engineer with Chrysler. He's the one that did the kit cars.
Okay. Oh.
They hired him, and they designed a car and worked with me, and that's what we built in 88 and 89 for Richard.
There's been different chassis builders over the years, and all of them sort of come out with the latest and greatest idea, right? And so what are some of the things, I suppose, that you felt like that you helped usher in to the chassis builder world, or what were some of the things that maybe you started doing earlier than other people that might have, kind of set yourself apart?
Well, I mean, we Tex taught me this, try to make things light as you can,
Mm-hmm.
but still make it structurally sound. And that's one thing we've always tried to make a car safe. Try to don't use no light roll bars and stuff like that. And we wound up being able to build them and drive them helps, because like when I built Richard Petty's cars, I would test them for him.
Really?
Yeah. So I got luckily when they built Richmond, the new configuration, I got to do the tire testing for the Goodyear radials.
Damn. Yeah.
That was the first time they got tested, and it just helps whenever I can cut a car up and on Saturday go back to the racetrack and drive it and say that's better, that's worse.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think that helped a lot. But me being able to drive some that I can tell if whether it's better or worse myself.
What are some of the things that a chassis builder has to be always kind of aware of? I mean, what are the things that you guys are? If it feels like where we are today, like there's no more things to learn, right? I know that's not really true because everything's always obsolete. What was good last year, isn't good enough this year. Everybody tweaks and twists things. But I mean, how, I imagine back in the 80s and up through the late 80s, there was still a ton to be learned and improved on these chassis. Really, the front clip, rear clip, trailing arm system, the front points, all that stuff from back then, it's very similar to what we're still using today.
Yes, very, very close.
Very close. But back then, I know that we were getting different chassis from different cars. In the late model world, we were doing, we'd get a Townsend car or we'd get a Boltenheimer car, and the front clips would be quite different, and so there were a lot of different theories, I suppose. It's kind of what was it like us, going back and being a part of the industry back then, being able to be creative, being able to know there's like a lot here that you could probably discover, right? Cutting cars apart, running them, driving them, changing them, fixing them, finding little things. How fun was that to be part of that creative process?
That was a lot of fun. That was like whenever we tested stuff, I could always tell good or bad. And the big thing we played with back then is like now is spindles. We'd try spindles, back then when we ran the rear steer cars. I don't think you ever ran a rear steer car.
Yeah.
Kelly
had a rear steer Boltenheimer late model that I drove a little bit that we got from Robert Elliott. That's the only car I ever drove that was a rear steer.
Right. And then we kind of progressed away from the rear steer stuff to the Chevelle type suspension, because that's basically what everything was based off of back then, was a 64 Chevelle.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just kind of took one of those and then jigged off of that, and you made your own points and stuff. And then for a while, it became the craze was a drop snout.
Yes.
Everybody was.
Why was that? I mean, we did that. We did that in the Busch Series in the late 90s. Right. Early 2000s, we were still running drop snout cars. And that would come and go.
Right.
But, everybody have an 1.5 inch drop, and then everybody go back to standard. And then everybody go back to drops again. Why?
I think a lot of that is monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
But I mean, the tires changed.
The tire may determine some of that.
I think a lot of it's determined by the tire.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like the tire we ran this past weekend at Florence is different than we ran last year.
Really?
Yeah. It reacts different, and it just setups from last year that we led with didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
This year, and it's the same way with Cup. Everything back then, they changed the tire. Then drop snout's the way to go. And some drivers like the drop snout car. I mean, regardless of the tire.
Right.
They felt more comfortable with that.
Yeah. We'd predominantly run the drop snout car at all the short track stuff. I don't know that we were really taking drop snouts to speedways, but like Charlotte even. But once you drove one and you got it in your mind that thing cut the corner better, you were convinced.
Right.
And it took a lot for you to believe otherwise. It'd have to be a significant you'd be at a test somewhere with a standard and a drop, and that standard would have to do some pretty damn good stuff to convince you otherwise.
Right.
That the drop wasn't the way to go. That was when we had the Busch cars back in the 89 or the 98, 99 season, the red-headed stepchild and all that stuff, the red chassis, those were our drop snout cars, and everybody was buying them because we were just doing so well with them. But you ended up you talked about building cars for Richard Petty. You were the one that built the chassis for the car that flipped down the front straightaway at Daytona. Not the way you want to see that go, but you talk about building safe race cars. That was a hell of a wreck. And Richard's, toward the back end of his career at that point, those wrecks are harder to walk out of in his case. And you had to be pretty happy with how that thing held up considering all the things that went through during that crash.
Yeah, because I was standing on pit road, and when it happened right in front of us, I'm like, oh no, this is bad.
Yeah.
When he finally stopped, the flipping part wasn't so bad, but when he got hit in the left front and spun him so fast.
Yes.
Well, Dale Inman's on the radio going, Dale, and Richard, you all right? You all right? You all right? Never said a word. Richard, you all right? You all right? And he finally come on the radio and he said, yeah, I'm all right, but I can't see nothing. He said, my eyes aren't working. And the doctor said when he spun it so fast that the blood vessels and all, the blood went out of his eyes.
Jesus.
And he couldn't see. And then, he was the biggest problem he had was his knees and stuff were banged up so bad.
Sure.
And so I was going to relief drive for him at Richmond.
Really?
The next race. They had me up there standby. And we was in the trailer the morning of the race. And he said, you gonna be all right? I said, yeah, I'll be all right. And he said, well, I'll just get your suit on when the race starts. And he said, if I feel bad, we'll just stop, whatever we do, lose laps, whatever we do. And the doctor come in there, started taking fluid out of his knees. And I'm like, there's no way he's going to run this race. And about first caution come out, we run good. And he said, I'm going to be fine. And he said, yeah, I ain't going to get out. Yeah. So I just went and took the driving suit off and watched,
Wow. But, you ran, you talk about being a standby for him. You had raced in the Cup Series a handful of times, but not many. You raced your debut was at North Wilkesboro in 93. You'd run 2 starts in 94 at Wilkesboro and Martinsville, all short tracks. You had a bad crash at Pocono. Had an engine from Ernie Elliott running good in practice. Made an adjustment and got yourself turned around backwards.
Yeah.
Broke your ankle.
Yeah, we went to Pocono and tested, and we rented a racetrack. And back when you could rent the racetrack,
yeah.
And we were by ourselves up there that day.
Oh,
and time wise, I was slow, but we had a motor in there that Ernie had given me to test with, and he said it'll get you around the racetrack. And so we kept working on it, and really didn't run fast. And I called Terry Labonte. I said, where do I need to lift going into 1? And he said, well, you need to lift about, number 5 or something on the board, there. He said, where you lifting? I said, 1. He said, you don't have no motor. He said, if it drives good, you'll be fine. So we come back and Ernie sent us a new motor and we got the racetrack. Ernie said, this thing is better than Bill's. I'm telling you. Yeah. He said, it's going to be better than Bill's. So we were top 10 fastest the first practice. And I had a guy, Dean Johnson, that was crew chief for me, and he come over, and this is when had a spoiler height rule, but you could put it whatever you want the angle was. And he said, can you run faster than that on another mock run? I said, yeah, I guess so. He said, I'm going to take some spoiler out of it. Wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
I get into 1 down there, and just before I go to 3rd gear, it turns around backwards, and I hit the wall of the driver's door.
Golly.
And it ricochets off the wall and comes back down. And I remember coming back down, and the 4 cars on a mock run, and he comes by my nose at 175 mile an hour, missed me as I'm sliding backwards. And the spotters on the radio yelling, are you all right? Are you all right? And I'm still sliding. And finally, Ernie Elliott, he's over in the garage area. I heard him yell at the boy with the talking to me on the radio. He said, he said, not through wrecking, leave him alone.
So you broke your ankle there?
Yeah. I got the adrenaline's going. You don't realize you hurt. You get out and step, and your leg folds up, and then my knee was dislocated where it caught the steering column, and so it just one of them deals. You kind of
wonder what year that was. What year was that?
That was 94, I think.
You ran the All-Star Open in 95 in a ride sponsored by Diamond Rio.
Right.
How did that come about?
Well, the Mr. Wilson owned the cars. He was vice president at RJ Reynolds.
Yeah.
And he had
who took care of the cars?
We kept them at our shop, and then we been messing with some people, the Blue Rhino people, the propane people.
Yeah.
They were just starting, and they wanted to be on the car, and they knew some people in the music industry, and so they come by the shop one night. Mr. Wilson did, and he said, "I think we got us a sponsor." He said, "You know about Diamond Rio?" And I said, "The trucks?" And he said, "No." And he said, "Country music." So he said, "Go get some CDs and listen to them."
Yeah.
And so they're going to sponsor us. And so it was a good deal. They were nice, really nice.
Yeah.
And we went to several shows with them, and but I got in the middle of a divorce, and the racing was, racing and with two young children. It's kind of, they had people come in to buy into the team, and they wanted to change. Because we went to Richmond, and I missed a race by 0.02 of a second. And then so they just kind of like went the other direction.
Yeah.
I was upset, but you can't blame them. It's money and it's a sport.
That was the end of your career on the, in terms of cup racing and bush starts. Eventually you would build cup cars for Dad.
Mm-hmm.
The car that Dad wrecked Terry with at Bristol was your race car, your chassis. At the time, Kevin Hamlin was the crew chief on the car. They had their own chassis shop, but they came over to you looking for something different.
Well, they were buying cars from Hopkins then.
Yeah.
And so then Kevin and them come into the shop and they decided they wanted to try something different.
What were you going to do that's different?
It was just, my cars were going to be a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Like at the time, I had bought a die that the Plymouth Tube Company that makes roll bar pipe, and they made us a die that I bought, and they would run a mill run of my roll bar tube, and it was 90 thousandths plus or minus a half, where everybody else was 95 thousandths, period. And I got to choose the carbon rated, and I wanted the type of tensile strength I wanted, and it made a difference.
Yeah.
And so they come over and wanted they said, "Build us 2 cars, but don't tell nobody."
Yeah.
Don't tell nobody who they're for. And I got them done, and they come pick them up, and that one evening after work, and took them to RCR, and the next morning, I don't think it's lucky they still had the job.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't go over well.
It didn't?
No.
Why? Who was mad?
Yeah, I mean, there was people kind of over the crew chiefs were not happy.
Yeah.
That they just went out on their own and did it.
Uh-huh.
And they tested them, started testing them, and they were always good, real good. And then finally, Pocono, Dale wrecked last practice after qualifying, and they carried mine as a backup every week, and they pulled mine off, and he started in the rear, and I think he ran third or something, and he should have needed just a little bit more. He could have won the race.
Sure.
And the car he loved was serial number 44. And he wanted to run that thing everywhere. We didn't run those speedways. It was all short track in Charlotte and stuff. Because they raced at Richmond one night, and he got in a wreck down there and knocked right front corner off and smashed some bottom 2 door bars up. And they called me and said, "Look, we got to be at Charlotte Wednesday. We'll have this thing at your shop in the morning, Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, and we need it back by that night."
Mm-hmm. We
had to call my guys and say, "Look, be at the shop. We got to fix the car." We put half front clip on it, 2 door bars. They picked it up, and they was at Charlotte with the thing Wednesday.
Dang.
And then that's the car he ran at Bristol when he rattled Terry's cage.
Yeah. That was your only Cup career win as a chassis builder.
Right.
What was the decision, I suppose, to go the route you went, where now you're a household name in the short track industry in terms of late model stocks. Everybody's everybody's buying cars from you. How come, I suppose, that opportunity and the success of those cars didn't develop into something more long term, or even other opportunities with other teams? Or
I don't know. It's a lot of it. Most people didn't even know that we were building them.
All right, yeah.
I mean, I've got pictures.
Do you wish you'd have done that differently, or
nah,
could you?
The way, I'm still satisfied with where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yes, you could have built more of them.
Yeah.
But and I built some for Stavola Brothers.
Yeah.
And Hamilton drove them.
Yep.
And stuff. And so, but I built different ones. But I don't know. I kind of like the short track deal.
Why?
I don't know. To me, it's a lot of fun. On Saturday night, and I just like dealing with people. Short track racing and stuff, and the speedway racing stuff is fine, and it's more money in it, obviously, but I just kind of grew up, with a short track deal, and I just kind of enjoy that. That's where I still go every week.
Yeah. So currently, you build chassis for us at Junior Motorsports for our late models and other teams as well across the Cars Tour, across late model stocks. What other chassis y'all build?
We do some super late models,
Yep.
a little bit, and I'm starting to build some modified cars again.
Yeah.
I've had people call me, want me to build some modified cars, so I got a new one started. It'll be a house car.
Damn.
And Jason,
where will it run?
We'll run that Southern Modified.
Yep.
Deal.
With who?
Probably Jason Myers. I'm gonna test it some.
Yeah.
And Jason Myers works for me part time.
Does he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he works UPS, gets off of there third
Comes
shift,
over to
and then
the shop.
he comes over and
He's a good dude.
yeah, he's funny.
Where is your shop at?
It's in High Point.
High Point.
Yeah.
And it's been there
Since
all these years.
I was at Martinsville racing in 1983, and I was at the hotel that night, and my grandfather, he loved racing, but he didn't really want me racing.
Yeah.
And he had money, and he would always come up to the front of the shop, the Quonset hut, and roll the window down. He said, "Why didn't you win Saturday night?" I said, "Well, got outrun, Grandpa." So, but I was there at the hotel, and the phone rang, and I answered, and my mother said, "Your grandpa's here, and he wants to know how big a building you want." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "He's going to build you a building." I said, "Well, I don't know." And then he said, "Well, here's your options." He gave me the options. I said, "Well, I'm going to take the biggest one. I ain't going to take the smallest one. I get in the middle."
Yeah.
And he said, "All right." He said, "I'll have the bulldozer over there tomorrow morning when you get home from the race. Start bulldozing trees down. Figure out where you're going to put it." So we built the first building. It was like it's 40 by 75. And then in 88, I added on, and it's now like 225 by 80.
How many employees you got?
12.
12 employees. Building, how many cars a year, you think?
It just depends. The most I've ever built in 1 year was like 35.
Yeah.
But it varies from winter
Is the
to
majority of your cars late model stock?
Right this time, yeah. But
what do you enjoy about late model stock racing?
It's just fun to work on them and just try to make them go faster. We've got Mason Diaz driving for us this year.
Yep.
And he's really good.
He's a good dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
a good driver.
He knows what he's doing. And
yeah. He's kind of been looking for opportunity over the last couple of years.
Right.
Yeah.
And we had some pretty good runs with him last year. Sat on the pole at A Speedway with him, and then got spun out. And but he's really good. And sometimes we have trouble qualifying, but we've been working on that. But he really knows. He has his racecraft down good.
Yeah.
We would have been good Saturday night, but they kind of jammed up and we got turned around in that deal. It's just nobody's fault.
Yeah.
One of them racing deals.
Yeah, for sure. What's that schedule look like this year? How do you decide how much you're going to race your house cars?
We're going to run every Cars Tour race.
No kidding.
Run all the Cars Tour races.
How did you decide that?
That's what Mason wants to do, Mason.
I know, but you have to make financial sense of it.
Yeah, well, he's got sponsor money.
Yeah.
So it takes
he put some stuff together.
Right.
He was frustrated a couple of years ago trying to figure some things out. He drove our car at Hickory one weekend, and I think he's a hell of a little driver.
Yeah.
And he works hard. We know his dad owns Southern National for folks out there listening, and Mason, when Southern National's having their events, Mason works really, really hard running the program or helping the event come off well. So he's not afraid of hard work.
No, when he runs that racetrack down there, it's like clockwork.
That's right.
I'm telling you, it's whatever the schedule is, it stays on schedule, and everything runs really well.
Does he get by the shop?
He comes by every once in a while.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to come by here. We're going to go test here pretty soon.
Where?
We're going to go to Southern National and test.
Yeah, all right.
Got to get ready for the cars to race.
For the lead off event. Yeah, I'm excited. I want to tell folks your cars have won numerous national titles. The Advance Auto Parts Series titles in 12 times. 08, 09, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 23, and 24. Numerous Cars Tour championships. 16, 17, 22, 23, 24, 25. You also launched the Hedgecock Racing Academy in 2005, and you started the Hedgecock Driving Development LLC in 2009. So, as a chassis builder in the late model stocks and the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States, what is you've seen a lot of change. You've seen even in the recent years, our tires have changed a lot over the course of the past couple of years. The Cars Tours went through a lot of change and growth. I sat down all the time and just contemplate, what direction we're headed, and are we doing what we need to be doing so that we can sustain success, right? And everybody, as long as we've ever raced, I mean, you can pull magazines out of the rack from the 80s, the 70s. It don't matter. Everybody talked about how expensive it was, and it's always going to be an expensive hobby. But what are some of the things, I suppose, that you are concerned about? What are some things that you think, as short trackers, us as an industry, us all trying to pull this in the right direction? What are some of the things you think we need to be, aware of, mindful of? What are some of the things, that you're excited about, looking forward to? I miss this idea. So a couple of years ago, Landon Huffman made a YouTube video about how much it cost him to go race at Hickory. He had a weekly car that he ran out of his dad's shop, and he basically itemized his entire season down to about $60,000. And when me and Kelly and Carrie were racing our late models at Hickory, Tri-County, and the beach annually, I think our budget was around $60,000 in the 90s. That's a lot of money, but it is going to be an expensive hobby. I don't think it's going to get any cheaper than that. But we've seen costs rising. We've seen, there's more. Teams have full-time employees. Tires have gone up. You mentioned how tires used to be $300 a set. I remember when we go to the beach and race in the 90s, they were $400 a set. They're twice that now. Those things are out of our control. There's a lot of things that we can't control. We can't tell Goodyear or Hoosier how much to charge for their tires. But, what is some of the? What do you? I want this to last forever.
Right.
I love. I don't even like to call it grassroots racing. I love short track racing. I love our local shows. I love our Cars Tour. I love super late models, pro late models. I love what's happening down in Daytona right now with New Smyrna and Speed Weeks and all that good stuff. I love seeing what's going on at Berlin, all the great successes across the country, what Harvick's done with the West Tour. What do we need to do as a guy who's seen this forever? What do we need to do to be mindful that it continues?
I think the way you're doing the Cars Tour, there's so much publicity. I get people in the local restaurant I go to, that the farmers and people that have no idea about racing, they just know that I mess with race cars, but they watch the Cars Tour races, and there's so much interest in the Cars Tour stuff that it makes it easier I think for people to get sponsor money, just because of the publicity that you bring and the whole series is brought to to TV,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think that in itself is going to translate down to other short tracks, not necessarily the Cars Tour, but these other people see, you know, hey, you know, this Cars Tour deal, you know, is a good deal, and maybe these people at Caraway want some money, and we don't mind sponsoring them because TV. It hurts in a way. It hurts the grandstands, but it in the long run, it's better because of the amount of people you actually get to see that are watching the race.
Yeah,
that's, you know, it's kind of a
double-edged sword for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a balance to be cast between being a touring series that's trying to succeed, profit, pay for, you know, we have a forecasted cost of how much it costs to run the series, and we want to be able to break even. And the series has to afford itself. With that said, we have to be mindful of the local racers at South Boston, the local racers at Caraway, and the landscape has changed. Even what our local tracks are doing, the feature car, you know, has at some tracks gone away from the late model stock and more toward a limited, which in my mind, I mean, the limited is the same car. Just a little bit less power, and which I actually I want to embrace. I like the idea of the limited car being the feature car, the primary car at some of these tracks, because it is more affordable.
Right.
It is kind of it's hedging back toward, you know, the possibility of that guy having that race car in his garage outside the house, you know, that we all depend on for the local show. I'm the same as you. Like I would prefer, you know, to be standing in that pits at Florence during the icebreaker as opposed to the garage at a big event somewhere. And it's nothing personal. It's just, I do know that all the people that are, you know, for example, the icebreaker this past weekend, the people that are there because they want to be.
Right.
Every single person there is there because they are absolutely in love with it.
Right.
And it's really an interesting thing. And it took me a while to get back there. It took me a while to get back to it. I had opportunities to race my car and race with Josh or be closer to that whole deal and experience more with what Josh was doing in our late models, Josh Berry. But I was hesitant and I should have done it sooner. But it's been a lot of fun to get plugged back into it. And you've been a witness to it for all these years. 70 years old, what keeps motivating you to go to the racetrack? You seem like you're in really good health considering your age and like I can't say you've taken care of yourself because working on race cars is not always good for your health.
No, but I mean, fortunately, my health is good.
Yeah.
You know, and I enjoy doing it, and I work out every day at a gym.
Really?
Shop.
Holy well, there you go.
So,
there's the answer.
You know, and my wife kind of keeps me in check. You know, and so
make sure you're eating good.
Right.
Yep.
But I mean, I enjoy it, you know, and it's like I say, it's fun. It's still fun, you know, and I've always been. And everybody asks me at the racetrack, when are you going to quit? Say when it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it's not fun, then I won't come around.
Yeah.
You know, and so I mean, I enjoy, like I said, the Cars Tour races kind of re-energized late model stock car racing. You know, and then I think, and when you go to that deal, it's almost like the Busch Series was.
Dude. Yeah. I'm glad you said that because that's the way I feel that too. I didn't live the Busch Series or the early 80s. I was young. I think I kind of remember how it was or how it felt to be in those garages. But to me, the cars, the way the cars are made, built, the parts, the pieces, all that stuff is very recognizable, very similar. And the competition. Yeah. Like I go run these races and man, there ain't a bad car in the field.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 24 cars go in the race.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, as people think, you know, oh, you know, he qualified 15th. Well, he was 900ths off the pole.
Yeah.
At 15th.
Yeah.
You know, you take a stopwatch and try to stop at 900 and see what happens. You know, it won't happen.
What, you know, the chassis builders, you've got the competition in the chassis world. You always have. You know, how do you navigate that? How do you how do you stay competitive, still build a safe car? You'll have people come in. I think a great example would be when Tony Jr. and those guys got in the Fury deal, and the Fury car was a brand new chassis, and they kind of took over some market share and was competitive with Hamke and other builders, and all that ebbs and flows, and builders kind of come and go. How do you navigate that and stay competitive?
Well, the big thing is that you got to have good people driving it and working on it. But
you got to win races.
You got to win races. For me to stay in business, I tell somebody's got to win, somebody's got to wreck. That's just bottom line.
I get it. So you got to have a car crossing the finish line, then you got to have one to fix.
Right. So, but I mean, we work on stuff all the time. We have a pull down rig at the shop, and we work on that. And my son experiments and we try different spindles and stuff. And you just got to. It doesn't take much to be 15th to first when you're talking about 900s.
Yes.
And so, if you come up with a spindle or a combination or a shock package that that works and picks you up 900s, then that puts you up front, and that's what we do. I mean, and having people, like your drivers, with Josh, Josh, when Josh figured it out, Josh was impossible to beat.
Yeah.
I mean, when he finally.
Is that good for business?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very good. Very good. Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's, and the quaffles are really good in your car.
Yeah. Good folks.
And they're really nice. And I mean, they win races, and that's your man Schaefer that looks after the deal. He and I are old school.
Yep.
And me and him get along good, and we exchange ideas and stuff, and that's what I got to do. You can't just sit on what you've got. You got to keep working. We come up with some things this winter that we did to cars, and and I think it's made them better.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna build a car and find a half a second.
No.
Days of that are over and done with.
Yeah.
You got to little by little creep up on it.
Yeah.
So
what advice would you give to me and Kevin and all the guys running the tour on how to make sure the tour is successful and the car is successful, the chassis is successful? I think about the late model stock car. It's a regional car. It lives in this bubble. It's not a national car. It's not like a pro or a super. I mean, I would love for it to have a bigger footprint, but it's difficult for our owners to want to travel farther than we're going to some of these races. But what advice would you give to us as a tour to try to?
I mean, the way things are going right now, I mean, it's on the right path.
Yeah.
You have really good people. Carson is really good at looking after things at the racetrack, and she has a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
I mean, and you have to just stay with it and just kind of deal with the headaches and get over it. But I mean, everything to me right now is good. Like I told you, we get so many people calling inquiries. Like my wife showed me emails this morning, people wanting to rent race cars, inquired in the car store. Yeah. I mean,
what is the I know that I know that our owners, balk at traveling further than our bubble. As a chassis builder, is it advantageous for you to have the car racing further out into the Midwest or up north, or does it matter? Does it make a difference to you? Do you want to see?
I mean, the more they race, at different places, the better it is.
We had hinted about taking it down to New Smyrna and trying to find a way to be a part of Speed Weeks, just because we thought that'd be a great showcase for our series. Berlin is begging us to come up there and race, but it's a haul,
right?
Long way to go. But these tracks are calling. They're wanting to see how to get the cars to where their fans are asking for it. Our owners are absolutely not interested in it, and I can totally understand that. And I don't want to do anything that's going to deter our teams from competing with us. So it's a weird sort of juxtaposition to be in, where I think like a guy like you would love to sell cars more nationally,
right?
But and there's some of our owners that would probably benefit from the tour becoming having a bigger footprint. But I don't know how to. I don't know. I'm not really pursuing that seriously, but I'm just kind of curious as to, like, if you ever did want to kind of expand the tour, how could you do it where everybody would be all in, pulling the same road in the same direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think before it's over with, I think somebody's going to present y'all with enough money to entice people to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's people just in working with y'all now
Yeah.
that want to be part of this deal and sponsor it. Like I sponsored the pole award since it was started for several years.
Yes.
And I mean, there's people with a lot more money than I ever thought about having that are wanting to get into your sport just because of what it's become now.
Yeah.
And I think, you come up with a deal where somebody wants to sponsor the series and say, okay, we're going to pay $25,000 to win every race.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get people will drive their truck that far.
So that's a great question. We're getting toward the wrapping up here, but I don't never owned a series before, didn't have any experience. Don't pretend to have all the answers or know exactly how to do it, but we're working hard, and it is on our mind, and we're working on it every day. We're trying our hardest. I've had an interesting experience trying to find out what gets teams excited. I've had teams go out of their way to go race for big first place money in a race that didn't pay anything from second on back, right? And they loved it. They're like, I'm going to run that. That pays this big check. Right. Knowing that the odds of them actually winning the race, were tough. But they knew that there was, they were going to that race and going to go all out and spend all the money and effort that it took to go do that. And then you'll have a race where it pays relatively nice on the front end, but the back end's boosted. And nobody seems to recognize, like you would think, like, hey, man, I'm gonna, if it costs you $2,200 to just get to the racetrack and get everything, your tires, and you're $2,200 in as soon as you buckle up to go practice.
Right.
I'm gonna, if the back end of the purse covered that, you'd think that would draw a lot of interest, but it really doesn't seem to do that. I don't know if the late model stock bubble is as big as it can be. I mean, there's only, like I said, it's only racing in this sort of small geographical area. There's only, if you had to guess how many operating late model stock cars, even at the regular shows, there's probably 200, 250 cars.
In that realm,
right?
Yeah. Right.
They get 80 cars for the big race at Martinsville. That used to get 180, 160, 120.
Yeah.
How do we get there? How do we get there? How do we, when you put that, when you instead of paying $1,400 for last, you have a race where you pay $2,500 for last. Where are the 10, 15, 20 cars that's supposed to show up? How do we get there?
I think that it's going to come through their being able to get more sponsors.
Yeah.
I just think that, there's so many of the companies that are looking at this deal here now. I mean, we talk to people all the time, about it. And then there's going to be interest shown that's going to be presenting people with money that's going to help them get to the racetrack, whether they can afford to or not on their own.
Yeah.
And I just think that, because like I told you before, the interest in Cars Tour is right now is probably 10 times what it was 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I say, everybody.
Do you think we need to you think it would be in our best interest to do a better service to our teams in terms of showcasing their partners? Like what I'm hearing from you, and I mean, this is common sense, but what I'm hearing from you, I'm thinking more about the purse. What strings am I not pulling with the purse to draw everybody there? It ain't the purse. They need the support on the front end from ex-partner or local business or whatever. And so should I, therefore, maybe put more of a spotlight on all of these individual partners on these race cars, right, that are coming to our racetrack, to make sure that those people are walking out of there feeling like they're getting a showcase.
I think the sponsor deals, I mean, it helps whenever you showcase them on, when you're doing the racetrack and you're on flow.
Yeah.
Like here's, your, to say Lowe's car
or
whatever, and then, because whenever I drove modified cars, Lowe's actually sponsored me before they sponsored Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah.
And we took in, we won a race at North Wilkesboro in a modified car with Lowe's sponsor on it. And we had a meeting up there, and they told me that the amount of airtime that they got was equivalent to like $300,000 in money spent on a commercial,
Right.
and it was free.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think a lot of these companies will see that,
Mm-hmm.
because of, I don't know the exact fan base that Flo has for car show races,
Mm-hmm.
but I know like Wilkesboro and stuff is like good,
Yeah.
like really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Wilkesboro's a great race for us.
yeah, and I just think that it's not going to be what y'all are done purse wise. I think that the thing that y'all are doing is going to help get people's money just through other companies coming in wanting their name
on the race
car.
All right. Well, we can certainly do a better job there. I'm glad to walk out of here with some insight and some advice. Jay, it's been a lot of fun talking to you, man. I'm glad you came here today. You're one of those individuals, like your last name is recognizable mainly through your success as a chassis builder, particularly in the local, short track scene. But I wanted people to hear your story in full and kind of know where you came from, because I myself wanted to personally know more about that. And I like seeing it at the racetrack. I like you being involved. Thank you for the impact that you've had on all these drivers over the years, all the cars you've built for people, all the support you've gave people. You don't really ever, you don't cross me as one of those guys that kind of sits back and reflects on much of that, but you've personally influenced tons of careers in all the chassis and cars you've built and all the racetracks you've been to and people you've supported. I mean, there's, in the short track world, if you got a guy building motors, and you go to the racetrack, he's got 5 engines there up and down the pit road, and he goes and he tunes on them. He makes sure everybody's happy. And I see you doing the same thing. Even if you have a house car there,
right? You
come by, you check in on us, you make sure we're doing all right. Got any questions? Got any challenges? And I appreciate that support. So just looking forward to seeing you at the racetrack this year. Glad you're going to be at a lot of car short races.
Yep.
And we'll see you at the racetrack.
Well, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been good, and we'll see you around the racetrack soon.
Yes, sir. Jay Hedgecock on the Dale Jr. Download. All right, so that's Jay Hedgecock, and great conversation. Learned a ton. Man, would I give anything to have been a witness to some of the short track races that he saw Dad run at Caraway and other places. Tangling with Butch Lindley across the finish line, barely beating him, wrecking with Sam Ard. Just incredible. I can't imagine what it must have been like to be there and watch all that go down. But Jay was around for all of that, and didn't know he built that car that Richard Petty flipped down the front straightaway. Did not know he built cars for my dad that Dad would drive in the Cup Series. And so, I know he's been building late model stocks for a long time, and his cars have been around for quite a while, but hadn't a lot of knowledge beyond that. And so it was great to get him in here. And every now and then, I like to bring those guys in here because I get this question all the time. There's some kids standing out here on the front porch of Junior Motorsports right now that are students over at the Technical NASCAR Institute, and they want to know how to get into this sport. And there's not an answer. There's no easy answer. They would prefer that you would have an opening in this building and hire them into that role, and off they go. But sometimes you got to be kind of like Jay Hedgecock and just create it yourself, right? Just Jay Hedgecock didn't start building his first race car thinking, man, I'm going to make a living building race cars. He built it because he wanted to race. He wanted to go to the racetrack. He wanted to build a car and go see it compete. And he did that well enough that he started to accumulate customers, people that wanted him to build cars for them. And that's just a process. It's a long, long road. But every now and then I love to get those guys in here because we get to hear like the genuine path of one of the routes now, to get into this industry. Certainly was a different route than I took. I was kind of born into it, but not everybody's that fortunate. So awesome to learn from Jay. Awesome to get some insight from Jay on the current state of short track racing and some of the things that, he likes about the tour and what the tour can do better. Yeah, I think he enjoyed being here. So we got a lot of things to talk about before we close out the show. Just want to make y'all know that we will have a live show down in Daytona Thursday, the 12th, at the Fan Zone inside the racetrack. Dirty Mo Media will be live on Sirius XM. We've done this last year. I'll be on from 3 to 4 p.m. with Jeff Gluck, Freddie Kraft. We're going to have some others come on as well, Jeff Gordon, Ryan Blaney. From 4 to 4:30, there'll be like a crossover show with Dirty Mo Media and Sirius XM. And then from 4:30 to 6, Sirius XM Speedway with Dave Moody. Our show will drop on the podcast and YouTube later that night. Also, we've got new merch out, Dirty Mo Media merch for 2026. It's pretty awesome. The Green Flag Collection has dropped. Also, we got a Valentine's Day line that's perfect if you're buying for someone on Valentine's Day. Hoodies, tees, flags, the whole deal. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here at the Arby's studio. Don't forget about Arby's new Meat in 3 box. Get more meal for your money at Arby's. We have the meats. We're off to Daytona. We're in Daytona. We're live show in Daytona. We're going to have a lot of fun this week. We're going to try to win us an Xfinity race, try to get into the Daytona 500, and we're going to come back next week and tell you all about it. We'll see you.